that was comforting. That felt good to listen to you. The Dharma of the edge. I was thinking that where my life is right now, it seems that crises keep putting me on the edge. Like the radiator on the car went out, so I'm focused on the car and whether I'll make it from Albuquerque to San Jose. And I never think like that. Every time I take a drive, I got my manuscript with me, or I've got a tape in, or I'm reading a book or something. But when something was wrong with the car today, and I was coming out here with my son Gabe, I was focused on the car and the miles and the prairies and the mountains that we were passing, and how I live way up in those mountains, way up there. Every last person in the last canyon road that you can get to and stuff. And I wasn't thinking about Georgia O'Keeffe and the 200 biographies I've written about her. I was thinking about the car and my son driving and his fingers on the steering wheel and stuff. And then before that, crises to crises. I was thinking about how with the SB 1070 law in Arizona, how all my kids suddenly became illegal, and how I have to start traveling in about 3 weeks. I have to go to 16 states or something, and how I'm going to probably be stopped and asked for papers and this and that, because I don't look Anglo. I look pretty Chicano, and I'll be wearing stuff like Chicano power and stuff. You know? I'll be wearing my Dharma on the edge. And but I did feel real comfortable coming here with. I was very interested in meeting Fleet, and I was glad that I got to listen to you first, because it did make me comfortable. For the longest time, like Fleet, I was pretty heavy smuggling. I really wasn't that much into gangsters. I think bankers are pretty much enough gangsters as we have. We don't need any more gangsters. So I was just trying to fit in, and that constantly put me on the edge, because when you're trying to fit in, there's a constant analysis, a constant reflection of whether or not you belong. You know. And then, and living in America and brown skin, you wake up in the morning wondering whether you belong. It's just a terrible thing. I mean, it's a beautiful thing for me, because it allows me to wake up and celebrate my children and celebrate the people I live with and my friends, because no one else is celebrating them. And it sort of puts you, Dharma, on the edge. It sort of puts you out there, but it's a good feeling. It's like being a rooster in a sheep pen. You just sing because you're the only rooster and you want to sing. So you sing, you know, and it's a beautiful thing to do that. But I've always confronted and challenged the edge, impulsively and instinctively, and I don't know why. I remember one day I moved into a house, and I remember I never had a house, never had parents, never had any of that. So I wanted to be really, go through the official ritual. So I went through the official ritual, and I started putting up all these plaques. The honorary doctorates, the National Book Award, the American Book Award, the International Book Award, and all of that. And then I went in there the next morning to write, and I looked around, and I thought, this is horrible. I don't measure my integrity, nor do I measure my soul by these things on the wall. So I started grabbing everything and putting them in boxes, And my son came in, one of my kids, and said, what are you doing? And we want people to see these things. And I said, that's not how I measure myself, And they've never, ever come out of those boxes. Instead, I put up photographs of me when I was in the village in little tiny ragged moccasin stuff, all ragged, unwashed, me looking like this and grabbing my mother's hand so she wouldn't leave. I put those photographs all around the room, I put the photographs of my brother who was murdered as a crackhead, and me holding his hand when he made his first communion, I'm clutching it. I put his photograph on the wall. And every other morning when I do my yoga, the first thing I do is I look at the photographs. That's how I measure myself. And so I was thinking about that, and what a beautiful feeling it gives me what an extraordinary feeling it gives me. And then recently, somebody from New York calls and said, we want to do a box of books. And I went crazy. I was waking up really early in the morning. It was very, very cold, and I was writing like crazy, like a Russian poet who was in the gulag, just looking outside of my pockets, wondering when I'm going to be free, and thinking that if I write more, I'll be free. So I was writing, and I got all these things, and I sent them to a friend of mine here in Santa Fe, and I said, here. And he was like, these are insane. Insane beautiful. And I was like, yeah. And he said, what's it going to be? What's the title going to be of these things? And I said, well, let's do a box. Instead of go to New York, let's go to Santa Fe, where I was born, where I was raised as a child half the time. Let's go here. I want to do it here. Let's do a box. And let's just do these crazy, wild things that liberate people and put people on the edge. Emotionally, spiritually. So everybody ends up at the edge. There'll be no borders, you know? We'll just like be like, wow, I accept your Spanish, you expect my Chicano, that's good. Let's, you know, it's that whole kind of thing. It's like, it's really a good thing. Well, anyway, so he said, what are you going to call it? And I was like, how about Breaking Bread with the Darkness? And all of a sudden it was like, whoa, no. Because the logical mind is like, no, in American culture, they teach you, you've got to get away from the darkness. And I'm like, yeah, but don't you understand that almost everything I've done in my life, sitting in a room with Oliver Stone, and they're asking me if I want to do Scarface 2, and they're talking about a woman in Cuba that has a baby and comes here and he kills all her father, and I'm like, well, I got to go to the bathroom and I leave and I don't come back, I just leave. And then I leave the state of California.
Oh, God.
And at Harrison Gersh, the agency called me up on the phone. My agent says, what have you done? I said, I think I just broke bread with the darkness. And it's like, you'll never be wanted here again. You'll never come back here again. You'll never do anything again. I'm like, that's okay. But I didn't have the title, Breaking Bread with the Darkness, until I realized that all of those short stories are of me sitting down with my worst fears and popping a bottle of wine and saying, I'm not running anymore. And I'm not going to be ashamed of what I did. It's okay if I left. It's okay if I failed. It's okay if I didn't get the house you wanted. And it's okay if the car's broken. It's fine. Let's just have some bread and some wine. let's celebrate this darkness. You know, this thing where we're not like moving somewhere, moving forward or going here or going there. We're just saying it's good to see you, failure. It's good to see you, hopelessness. It's so good to see you because you know what? The alternative we have as human beings is that we can look at dusk out the window. We don't have to just break bread with the darkness in front of us. We have the alternative of looking out the window and seeing the stars. And then we see the moon. And then we have the dream of ourselves in the universe. And that's on the edge. Because the easiest thing in life would be to say, let's go, darkness. Grab my hand, we're walking out the door. But every time I break bread with the darkness, it's always to say, good to see you, man. I've got to go now. But at least I sat with the darkness and ate and broke bread, you know? And it's a beautiful feeling to have that. Say, okay, good to see you, addiction. God, I used to love you so much. I couldn't get up without you. I couldn't wipe my butt, eat my oatmeal without you. I had to have you there. I had to look out the door. You got to be there. And if you weren't, I had to wait at the window and wait till the car came. Oh, addiction is so good to see you. Bye. I gotta go write a poem to Lucia now, you know? And then you start to write the poem to Lucia, and you find yourself in Russia on a snowy night, and it's the middle of summer in Santa Fe. You see how beautiful that is? It's extraordinary. And it goes back to, I don't know what it is, but everything that I'm saying has to do with what Fleet was saying, but he said it in a much more beautiful way, a more coherent way. But Gabe and I, my son Gabe, didn't bring the documentary about the women's prison tonight. It's a 24-minute documentary because we don't have the money to fix the editing machine. It broke. And so we said, well, let's just use it through the camera. But we don't want to break the camera too, right? So we said, well, it's okay. I said, it's okay. Something will happen. It always does. Always. I said, but then Gabe came up with a beautiful idea, and he said, let's just bring Moving the River back home. And then I'll end with this little illustration of Dharma on the edge.